but
that'll do you.
Feel much better though, in much better spirits.
Not to get graphic, but I haven't thrown up in 15 years. I don't know. It's been so long.
It's been so long since I've thrown up.
That's a long time.
Yeah. And I don't want to say I'm proud of it, but I'm kind of proud of it. And I also worry that now I've set myself up for the universe to enact some sort of karmic vengeance on me for having said it.
The time has come. Welcome to the JRPG Pursuit, a podcast about all things JRPGs, from the games we play to the games we collect and everything in between. I am Abdallah.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Branden.
And today we've got a fun topic. We're going to go back into the collecting world. But before we get on that, I want to talk about something. Our Discord, Branden, Emily, I think it's been a lot of fun.
It's the best.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm biased, but it's the best. And I think that's unquestionable. So,
yeah, exactly. We have a lot of cool events coming up. I know in April, we're going to be doing some events in terms of playing Streets of Rage and what was the other one?
Xenoblade X.
It was Xenoblade X event that's going to come
some
up.
Other fighting games too, I think.
Yeah, some fighting games. So we're not just like keeping it to JRPGs, but there's a little branching out because everybody
enjoys different things. We're just gonna have some fun.
We'll see what everyone likes to do, and then I'm super excited that we'll be joining in on some of those as well, and it's constantly just a fun time. So lots of cool discussions going on there.
So
great way to connect with members, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you listen to the show regularly and you are interested in becoming a member and supporting the show, we really appreciate that. And that gets you in. You can join in on the festivities, and we hope to see you there.
Yeah. But to move on, today's topic. So collecting. Basically what we want to go collecting. Yes. What we want to get into today is just the history of social media and collecting as a whole. Looking back at our experiences, growing up, I wouldn't say growing up, but per se last like so many years, being on the YouTube space, ingesting YouTube content and learning from other collectors out there. How does that kind of affected our collection process? How do we see that affecting the process in general across like the market? And then also getting into our own experiences as content creators and the collection process there. Me being one of the newer people in this space.
Fresh face little baby boy. Just joining the party.
Just the baby cheeks right over here.
He has a full beard. Just so you guys, so you know, if you're an audio only listener, he does have a full beard.
Just a bearded baby over here.
Imagine a bearded baby over here. Goo goo gaga.
Actually, don't imagine that. It's pretty terrible. It's horrifying. I'm scared of that.
This is quite a sight.
But we'll dive into each one of our experiences, and we'll kind of hit on a bunch of different topics from that. But I think to start it off, let's take a moment to reminisce on YouTube, on social media in general, the things that we have experienced and seen in the space, and how that has affected collecting. You guys have any fond memories, or I guess like initial memories of that process?
Oh man. I could speak for myself when it comes to how social media influenced maybe my collecting or just my knowledge of game collecting. And honestly, I didn't really get much into it until much later. So when I picked up the 3DS again, when I was in grad school back in 2013 or so, I didn't really go on YouTube for game recommendations at that time. Instead, I was like on Reddit and some other forums, and that was where I got most of my game recommendations, and then people sharing their love for physical media and kind of their collections they started forming. And that kind of inspired me to hold on to my games rather than to resell them and kind of collect memories while I was in the process of playing more games at that time. Was that kind of your guys' experience, or maybe something a little bit different?
I started watching like video game YouTube. It was like 2018 or 2019. And like for a long time, I was not a collector by any stretch of the imagination. I think I had held on to like 3 games from childhood. It was Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI, and Chrono Cross. Oh, and Xenogears. So 4. And those were the games that I had, and I had sold everything else, gotten rid of everything else. When the new console would come out, I'd just get all the new stuff.
But those were just games that you were fond of. That's why you want to hold on to them, or were you just not able to sell them?
I would have been able to sell them for sure because they were worth a lot. But I just was like, no, there's no way I could ever sell these 4 particular games.
Your prized possessions at the time.
Yeah, I loved them, and I still do.
Oh, yeah.
I still do. Would never sell those. But yeah, like seeing YouTube collectors, it struck me as like, oh, that looks fun, I guess. Like going out and finding stuff, the thrill of the hunt and all that, you know?
Yeah.
So then I started doing it. And in retrospect, I wish that I had started the YouTube channel back when I was amassing the collection instead of after I had already basically amassed it. Could have been some good stuff there.
Do you think that may have changed some of your philosophies, though, if you were recording it and getting feedback of how you're collecting?
100% it would have.
Yeah. So maybe it was a blessing in disguise there that you didn't record it all.
This massive pile of games would be probably 3 times as large, and I would be... I would have built my house out of them. That would be my shelter. I would not have a home.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
we can touch on that maybe a bit later, but continue.
Yeah. No, I mean that's basically my history, like with YouTube, as far as like getting me into collecting. It inspired me to do it. But then then actual, like, as far as content creation goes, we'll get into that later, I'm sure. But that wasn't, collecting hasn't been the main focus of my content creation. So, what about you, Dalla?
Yeah, my experience has always been kind of interesting because, like, I lightly collected back in the day. Like, as growing up, I've always kept my games. And for the most part, I mean, there's things that got lost along the way that I can have no control. Well, maybe. I'd like to say I didn't have any control over that. Just to make myself feel better for things that I don't have. But I think there's 2 eras of like the YouTube space that I remember. It's like the era of like the early, mid 2010s, where you have like the angry video game nerd that's kind of getting this like hype for retro games again. A lot of people want to experience the worst games out there, and also makes you think about what are the best games out there that you want to have especially for that period of time was very NES heavy for me. I think I thought about that a lot. And so like, seeing that and then slowly, getting into the space of like people who actually go out and their videos are on collecting. Specifically, kind of like what Branden was talking about, the hunting. Exactly. So like that got me into being just as equally as to him as like interested in like, I'm going to go out and hit all the Goodwills, all the Salvation Armies, all the thrift shops that you can find and see if I can find a good deal and amass stuff, like lots of stuff. And he didn't really care. Like I remember at the time, my earlier stages of that is like the idea of collecting was just getting it. It wasn't idea like I wasn't curating it at all. It was more of like that mentality of
amassing it.
Yeah, I was just amassing games, and there were games that I would get that I'm like I look back at it and I look at my shelf and I'm like, I got to get rid of some of these. Like there's some things that I'm like, I'm never gonna play. Like Strawberry Shortcake game for the PS2. Like why? Why do I have?
Listen, you've brought this up before, and you're not selling that until I get to play it. I'm going to play that game. But I've had my time with it. You can get rid of it, but I'm not letting you get rid of that until I get a chance to play it. Are you kidding me?
Members out there, if you want a stream of
me playing Strawberry Shortcake,
Branden and myself, or just a stream of us playing,
we'll play it together.
Strawberry Shortcake with some commentary. Let us know. We'll do it. But it's true. I have mentioned that game before. It's like the one game that like always that comes to mind when I think of that. I'm questioning. I'm like, because I see it. It's on my shelf and it's like in between some other really good games, and I'm like, why do I have this game again? But yeah. Anyways, it was just like the whole process of that was just amassing games of all kinds. You really didn't care. It was just So like I think that's kind of how a lot of people felt at the time as well. I feel like
maybe
it was easy
interesting though. because I don't think I was ever influenced by people who went out and game hunted. Because early YouTube for me was like in 2020-ish. Maybe a couple years earlier. I don't quite remember the timeline, to be honest. But I was kind of deep into K-pop collecting, for perspective here. And that started maybe in like 2017 when I started getting into ideas of how to curate my shelf with a different type of collection. And then naturally that progressed to video games because I was also interested in video games at the time, but I never really saw myself as a big game collector back then. Mostly because of space, and I didn't have that many systems. So I would primarily just be buying 3DS games. And whenever I got to, buy one of those and play it, it would be tucked away in the box. It's kind of what happened during my grad school years. But then when I moved away after grad school, I think it's when I started building up the game collection and being inspired by a lot of other collectors in the YouTube space who weren't really game hunters necessarily, or at least I didn't watch video content of them going out and getting games. Rather, they would talk about their collections, their passions for why they like to collect, and give a lot of recommendations for games. And so I was more interested in that type of YouTube at the time, which heavily inspired probably my channel as well.
That makes sense.
It's interesting how both of you, I think, were influenced maybe more by the go out and get games to amass a collection, rather than people who already maybe had the game collection they would reflect on what they owned.
Right. And the things that they're choosing in those cases, the curated collection people to highlight.
Yes or no, they're not all curated. They would just talk about the collections.
but I mean, like if you're watching a lot of content where people are recommending games and things, that's so different than watching a Game Chasers episode where they are just like, do they have video games at this place? Yes. Okay, then we're going to buy them. And that's like that was like a source, is a very different mentality, and it was the source of a lot of the fun of the hunt. Now in most of my game collecting, like I was primarily still focused on JRPGs. Like, of course. I did get other games that I was nostalgic for that I'd played growing up. But primarily I was still just getting JRPGs. I did for a while start getting games that were maybe adjacent to games I was nostalgic for. So like I never played Mario Sunshine as a kid. I completely missed the GameCube generation. So I am not nostalgic for that game. And now that I've played it, just sorry in advance, but now that I've played it, I hate that game so much. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
It's a very divisive game.
It is so close to perfect, but there's just something just slightly off about it that just ruins the experience for me. Shots fired. I'm sorry. I know there's passionate Sunshine fans.
Come at Branden in the comments, please.
Hit me in the comments about how wrong I am about Sunshine. I'm ready for it. Anyway. So I started, I collected I got Mario Sunshine. I started collecting all these other Mario games, or, these Nintendo properties or things that I had never played, but I was like, well, I'm collecting video games now, so I should have these.
So other people have them, right?
Other people have them, and they're part of a complete collection.
Oh, yeah.
I never was going for a complete set of a console. No. I did for a while have it in my head I was going to get the entire Nintendo published Wii U set.
I remember you making a video on that.
Yeah, I had a couple in that series where I was like, I'm going to do this. There's only like 45 or 50 of them, so it was like not inconceivable.
Some of those are expensive though,
but
right?
a couple of them are Devil's Third. Yeah, Devil's Third is like $1,000. So I was like, at a certain point in we'll talk more about the curation process later in the show. But at a certain point, I realized I don't want to have every video game, even I felt that more acutely even than when I was starting out. I want to curate what I keep on the shelf. And kind of not necessarily coincidentally, like I don't watch as much game collecting YouTube anymore.
Yeah.
I think some of that might be because it's kind of played out a little bit. I don't know.
Usually the series where people are trying to complete some sort of full set. I find a little bit played out as well. But
yeah,
I was never really drawn to that type of content to begin with. But
they're just not like finding stuff anymore. And, you know, I don't know, Dalla, if you experience this as well, like by the time we started going out and looking for games that way, they had places had mostly been picked over, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing left out there, at least in the area that I am. Like,
yeah.
Oh, mine too.
Just almost never found anything.
I went to the thrift store yesterday. I saw a FIFA game on the Xbox 360 and some dance game on the original Xbox.
You will always find those things.
And really expensive too. It's like, who wants to pay this price for this?
Yeah.
Misunderstanding the market there, guys.
It's just like also like, you know, back in the day, like Goodwill wasn't in on it. They didn't know.
Yeah, you could get great deals
things
before they got Wise, and then they got Wise.
And then they started their online auction.
Oh, yeah. So they don't even, most of the games
online.
actually don't even make it to the store itself. They see the game and they're like, oh, we're going to put it in an auction. And that gets like,
they ship it
to the auction. They never test it.
No, they
so
don't.
It's always like a gamble to actually buy.
And they have like no return policy, no nothing. So it's like, it's
right.
And they got it donated for free.
Those high prices. I'm like, you really want to sell that at that price without even testing the system?
Yeah. No,
but anyway, like, you know, so it kind of played itself out for the most part. And a lot of them, some of them were kind of moving on from that sort of content anyway. So like I used to watch a lot of Retro Rick, and he's since opened a game store, and a lot of his content is focused around that. And he'll do like general thrifting videos where he's looking for nostalgia, right? Like 90s nostalgia. It's not specifically video games.
I've seen, the floodgates open a little bit wider now. Instead of just retro video games that people are hunting for, it's mostly nostalgic kind of things. Like I've seen VHS tapes be popular and just regular DVDs or just action figures and things like that.
And that would be a fairly easy transition to make as a creator if you were focused on, you know, collecting video games and hunting for video games. Like broadening your net
for sure
is something that some of them have done to some success.
Too,
I don't know.
A lot of it's not necessarily the end game for them; it's the story, and so they're really good. I think the ones that are kind of at the top right now, weaving some sort of narrative to get their viewers hooked and kind of go along their journey through all their different episodes. Which I think is great. It's not really content that appeals to me because I was always interested in, you know, start of YouTube, looking at recommendations and like games I would be interested in. It's a different, you know, audience, of course. But it's been successful, I would say. Still.
Yeah. So anyway, you know, I've moved away from that mentality myself, and am way more focused on kind of the high, what I would consider the high quality JRPG stuff, right?
Yeah. Also, your content's not really around collecting so much anymore.
Not as much. No.
Which may be something we want to talk on later. Maybe why that you did that shift. But
Yeah.
But Dalla, you mentioned there are different phases of YouTube, right? And the collecting sphere. So what was the one that you were maybe hooked on the most as just an observer?
In the sake of collecting, I think it was like the early, like, it depends. So like, I really got into like almost like a new burst of nostalgia for games and things like that with like, you know, Pat the NES Punk and Angry Video Game Nerd and the kind of like people that were around that wave of like content. And that I think just kind of opened up the floodgate for me. I didn't get like deep into collecting until I started seeing people doing like, oh, like you can actually go out and like thrift this stuff. And like, it didn't dawn on me at the time. I think when I was watching those things that like, hey, you could just go out to like 5 different thrift shops and maybe you find something. Maybe there's a possibility there. So when I started getting to that wave of, I don't know, probably like 2018, 2017, I don't remember exactly what ways. Cause I was also moving around a lot. Like, I mean, I lived in Japan for about 5 years during the early 2010s and then coming back. So like my experiences were kind of like a little bit different as I drifted between like thrifting in Japan and then thrifting here. And so like when I recently went back to Japan and I was like trying to do the things I did back when like the 2013, 2014 era, it was very much not the case anymore. And so like, that's where I kind of like that, you know, coming back from Japan, I was like taking some of the things that I've like watched YouTube on that I couldn't do for the longest time because I was not in America. So I came back and I was like, all right, I'm going to try this out and do. And at that point, it was kind of starting to like Branden said, it's hard to find anything and the prices weren't there. So like the things that you'd find are things that you just wouldn't care about, either being like old sports games or Just Dance version, God knows which one at this point.
Yeah.
But like, you know, for me, I would, much like Branden, I would always be looking for RPGs. That was like my bread and butter, but I did always look at like, you know, if I can find any Sega Genesis games or NES games, because that's like that's where the nostalgia was for me at the time.
Yeah.
Outside of the nostalgia. So
was there a transition to modern day collecting for either of you, would you say, from away from the retro stuff? Because for me in 2020, I feel like that's when I really strived into modern collecting because, you know, a lot of stores were struggling and you were able to find a lot of great deals online, you know, because we couldn't go out and, you know, thrift anymore for games. That's when I started greatly amassing, like around 2021, 2022. Those were kind of the big kind of years for me for modern collecting specifically.
Yeah. I think I made the shift into primarily modern collecting mostly due to the fact that I had just gotten almost everything crossed off my list, honestly. Like, you know, I weeped for there were no more worlds to conquer. But yeah, like at a certain point, you know, I guess I could still collect retro. I could focus on it, right? There are a ton of, you know, higher value games and even some lower value games that I just don't want, that I know I don't want. So if I wanted to focus on just the act of collecting for the sake of collecting, I think I could still do it. But I've moved more modern, just out of like necessity because that's what I want to play right now. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
And I feel like as JRPG enthusiast, modern games is kind of where it's at, I would say, or argue, at least when it comes to collecting, the price point, and also just being in the hype window. It's a lot of fun, you know, to play the newest and greatest game and talk to people online about it. Yeah. At least I've been having fun doing that.
Yeah, I have never before recently been able to do that, you know, be able to talk with friends about a game that we are simultaneously playing, or, you know what I mean? Like it's a new experience. And it is great. So I don't see myself leaving modern gaming behind anytime soon. Yeah,
I think that was the hard part, like, you know, in our younger years where we didn't have like all the people around you or have the means to like discuss
I had very few people.
Yeah, like
I just had my brother and he didn't like the games I played.
Like I had friends who were into certain things and certain games with me. But it wasn't in the context of like collecting. It wasn't in the context of things like that. So like we weren't all going out and getting the same game and then playing through it together most of the time. We would get games maybe that you can play together or, you know, we would talk about games adjacently, like with Xenogears or anything like that, like when I was playing it with my friends at the time. But yeah, like I think it's just the mentality has changed. And like that's where I'm like, yeah, with modern gaming now, like, you know, we can talk about these things and it's a lot more interesting. Where I've always been a physical...
More people in the conversation.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people are also priced out of, you know, retro games, or they don't want to emulate, which I don't blame them, because sometimes emulation is not that great for certain games.
Yeah. Emulation is a interesting topic there.
Yeah, there's a whole episode in there. I know we've talked about it before. We should definitely do it. Like I just have issues with just the quality of the, like, I was playing an emulated, this is just a tangent, just to tease the upcoming whenever we do this episode. I was playing a game, a PSP game on emulator recently, and the sound, like I kept having issues with the sound. And I'm like, I just want to play the game. I don't want to have to like fine tune the whatever. Like, and so I get
so many save corruptions too on emulated games. So that's
like,
also kind of.
I get why people might not want to do it. And it's not just the easy fix all that some people want to say.
Plug and go. It's not plug and go.
It's not. Yeah. No. So, but that's a topic for another day. Yeah. But yeah. Modern gaming. baby. That's where it's at.
It's just, I find it so interesting how everyone's saying that there's like, the death of modern gaming right now, or how we're in a modern gaming drought. I'm like, do you play JRPGs?
Yeah.
We are
I highly doubt it if that's
living
what
our
you're
best
saying.
lives right now.
This is where all the money's being spent.
Yeah. Oddly enough, because it's long overdue for us, I think, honestly, because between
it's nice to have this golden age, though, where
Yeah.
It is.
we get to be the benefactors.
Yes, exactly.
For a change.
It's so nice that we just get because we get bangers after bangers usually, and they're pretty big type of games,
Yeah.
We can't keep up. I still haven't played games that came out last year or the year before.
Yeah.
It's just...
I'm in the middle of metaphor, everybody's, and I get so many comments on my year-end 2024 video, best games. Like, what's wrong with you? You're a fake JRPG gamer if you don't even have a metaphor on your list. I'm like, bro,
I didn't play it.
I didn't play it.
Yeah.
So people are so
and then
upset if you didn't play their favorite game. And
I know.
Why
And
didn't
then
you spend the time like I did to
They
play
come
it?
back at me like you seriously didn't play the best JRPG of 2024. I'm like, bro, you don't know my life. Like,
You don't know my life. No, that's accurate.
Right?
It's
We
just
don't do this all the time. It's not our job.
there's only so many games you can play in a year, especially with JRPGs with how long they are, and especially with Atlas. Metaphor is not a short game. It's not like a game you can
it's
casually
not.
just get through.
it's not 200 hours, but it's also, it's several lived days worth of content in there just to
100%.
blow through
It's
it.
substantial. It's substantial.
So yeah, you can't be expected to play every game through the year, but we are thriving in terms of just the options. So there's never going to be our retirement is set.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Go back to all these bangers that we missed.
As long as our hardware keeps up.
Well, that's a whole different thing.
There's that. There's that.
I know. A whole other can of worms there.
I'm still
crossing
crying.
my fingers that there's going to be, alternative means of achieving me being able to play our physical games in the future. I'm still holding on to hope that
There's
that
a will, there's a
hopefully
way.
happen.
Is how I think about it.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Analog has done it with
Yes.
the Super NT, Mega SG, some of these other,
They're a bit slow in the rollout.
they are
but
slow on the
yes.
rollout, but these things are existing, and so I'm hopeful that we'll continue to see things like that
Yeah.
in the future.
Yeah. But getting back to the topic, we talked about our observations on YouTube and kind of how we first interacted, I guess, with social media presence of game collecting. I guess now we could turn this to more of the perspective of how do we think all this media attention on game collecting has influenced maybe the market or people's perception of collecting. Do you guys think, has it been a net positive or a net negative overall?
It depends on what you're rating, right?
Yes,
I think it's been a net positive for awareness. I've learned about so many games that I probably never would have heard of if it weren't for YouTube content creators and social media in general. Has the attention on those games by these people caused the prices to go up? Yes, of course it has.
100%.
Of course it has. And they get defensive about it. Content creators a lot of times will get defensive about it. Oh, no, it's not my fault. It's bro, it is, but that's fine. That's just what happens.
Just own it.
There's that. And then also you have to wonder about significance too.
Yeah.
Because we could talk about a game that was maybe a hidden gem. No one's talked about played it or anything, but doesn't necessarily mean it's going to rise in price, right? There's timing and luck, I think, to a lot of it.
Yeah. And it's
some of these games that are maybe hyped up aren't very good games. So who cares if the price is inflated? It's kind of my perspective.
It's when you've talked about this before, Emily. It's when there's the hype of what you'll miss out when a system is starting to hit that sundown phase, the 3DS, when things were starting to get shut down on the 3DS servers and all that stuff. There's that FOMO aspect of here's all the hidden gems that you need to buy now because you'll never be able to buy them again. It's
PlayStation Store has had a few near misses. Same thing.
Yep. So there's a lot of people that take it. I'm not saying take advantage of that, but it's part of their, they'll talk about it.
That's what people are interested in. You make content that people are interested in.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of what happens when there's more, demand and limited supply. What's going to happen to prices? It's just Econ 101 there.
Basically.
But One thing that I wanted to note, though, is kind of, I think one of the other net positives has been in the interest of physical media. Because I think if you don't have a lot of people showing off their physical games or their interest in physical media, we would have been probably deeper into the all digital future much quicker.
Yeah.
At least from my perspective of how this has kind of been, surviving so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watching a lot of the massive game hunting, game collecting channels, like it makes it look fun, right? It makes it look like, you see their game rooms and you see the shelves upon shelves of games and stuff. And it's like, that looks great. I would like to also have that.
Yeah. Or at least live vicariously through. Like, I think the longer you consume this content on YouTube, the longer or the more awareness you have of things that exist, and you don't necessarily need to have it yourself. You could kind of pick and choose maybe what you want to position yourself to have, but you don't have to have everything.
Emily, I wish that I had the ability to live vicariously through other people. I do not. I have never been able to do that myself.
It is difficult.
It's a very good thought. It's a very good thought. Yeah, I guess so. And I'm sure there are people out there who do get that sort of enjoyment, you know what I mean, out of watching that sort of content. That was never me. I needed to do it. But I
don't know. I think it helps prioritize what you cherish more, right? When you're exposed to everything.
For sure.
Because if you have everything, like, we don't have the ability to get everything.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
And also, like, getting more than I necessarily wanted was a necessary step for me to determine what it is that I wanted. Yeah. Like to narrow mistakes,
it down. Right?
Yeah.
Like throughout adult or childhood, right? You're supposed to fall before you could run, right?
Brandon's all about the mistakes.
Whatever that saying is.
Well, and I don't even know, like, I think you're right, but I don't even, like, I think, like, the course correction of my collecting, I don't even consider it a mistake. It's like, this is what I wanted to do at the time. And then upon further reflection, it's like, well, I think I've changed in this way. And so it's
not necessarily a mistake. It's an evolution.
Yeah, it's an evolution. Yeah. And now I have these games in my possession that I can use to get more of the games that I do want. And like, that's been a good thing to have too, as my Midwest Gaming Classic budget will show.
It's true.
I've been selling a lot of games recently.
Yeah, I think games is a nice way to position yourself to have it so it's like a hobby cycle, right? Where you don't have to keep spending other external money to fund your hobby.
Right.
Which people have, of course, positive, negative things to say about that.
Yeah.
Since whenever you're online, right, you're going to be open to criticism, whether it's, something that should be worth criticizing and something that's maybe not.
Yeah. That's just like the problem with being like in, I guess, that online phase to something.
Yeah, the limelight, if you will, to different degrees.
Like, am I mad at Metal Jesus for making a lot of the games I bought over the last 7 years more expensive? No, I'm not mad at Metal Jesus about it. Is it his fault? Yeah, certainly it is. Like, him and other people. Like, I'm not saying it's not a bad thing. It's not. It's like, fault is not even the right word. Is it because of the content he and people like him made? Yeah, of course it is. But like, that's okay. Like, that's, like you said, Emily, it's Econ 101. That's what happens when things that people were not aware of, they are suddenly made aware of, and they're made to look appealing. They're going to want to buy them.
Exactly.
Supply-demand curves is all it is. And then also recognizing elasticity. Yeah. That's kind of how that all works. But
I just said, like I knew what that meant. I have no idea what that means. Like, yeah, obviously. Sure. Elasticity. What? Of course. I don't know anything. I'm stupid. I think I get it.
We could talk about it in the after show if you like.
I get a general sense.
Most people misunderstand what elasticity is. They think it's slope. It's not.
I have a general understanding of what you're talking about through context. So. It's
just the sliding curves of over certain factors. But anyway.
Sure. Yeah. But so I think that they have had, I think that content creators and social media personalities have had a significant effect on every aspect of collecting. And I'm sure it's not just in video games. I don't follow other collecting channels.
Look at
like
Pokemon, trading cards.
They're having a renaissance, right?
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of videos of like just the horrifying, the people fighting in Costco's for the for boxes, like literal, like just these grown men pushing children
It reminds
away.
me of how Black Friday used to be, where you have people break out in fist fights, but now it's just a normal day in Costco.
Yeah, it's wild. It's interesting to see like just how crazy that market has gone.
Yeah, and I mean, there's not really a video game equivalent of that, right? We don't have that, like, I mean, not really, not in a physical space, right?
No.
There's not like
people fight for limited
people
run.
are trying to get the Switch too, and if there's limited supply, maybe, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Like,
come in the next few months.
like
I would hope that they are prepared. For the
It sounds like they're prepared. We'll have to see in practice what happens.
There's like rumors of them already having like a bunch of stock here.
Stockpiles.
So and I guess to that point, consoles are really the only example in the video game space of that sort of scarcity leading to like frantic behavior.
Yeah, because I remember when the Wii came out.
Because they can make more.
Yeah,
right.
But like, remember,
it's not an actual limit.
Yeah, and I remember when the Wii came out.
It's like a limited edition, maybe, but still.
Yeah, that's true. With like the 3DS limited editions and things like that. But like with the Wii, when that Wii came out, it was so popular that like it was very hard to find. And there was a lot of people like waiting out for all night or fighting other people for this, like to get access to these things. So like there's been a lot of that in like the system launches, at least. Like,
Yes. And then there's just people who are comfortable not getting it at launch, like I have been for the last few years. I'm willing to wait, and if there's going to be an even cooler limited edition, I'd rather snag that than get the launch model, which often has issues. I know people usually like it for modding purposes, but
that's true. That is true.
I'm not
something I'm interested in.
I'm not really in that world myself. I've always been a day one console person myself. Like I get basically since the Wii, I want to say. I think I got the PlayStation 3 a little bit later, a few months maybe after launch, because it was the most expensive thing that had ever been when it came out.
Very expensive.
And I was a college student, so like I didn't have.
I don't think I've ever had a console at launch.
Oh yeah.
Never.
Yeah, for me, it's just like it's just fun to be on that. Kind of like we were talking about the, like the being able to play games at the same time as other people. Like I like being in the conversation when it's happening.
I just feel like most launch cycles don't have that many interesting games for me, and that's why I'm willing to wait.
Most of them don't. The Wii had Zelda, which was great. The Switch had Zelda, which was great.
But you get that on the Wii U. But
right.
Yeah, but
you could, but nobody wants.
At that point, you were like, I want to play it on the Switch.
Nobody had the Wii U, so nobody's playing.
I didn't either, but I still waited for the Switch Lite before I broke down and got something.
It's like the experience of like, okay, so like there's like it brings this nostalgia to like when I remember when systems would come out, and back in the day, everybody would show up, and it was like almost like a group. Like, the launch day, like, you're waiting in line with people, like, as like they're about to open, and like the same thing with the Switch. Like when I went to go pick up the Switch, I was like, we were all kind of hanging outside. They were opening it up at like in the evening, like after closing. And you're all just kind of, exactly. It was like a midnight launch. I think it was a midnight launch. But like, they opened it up and we all kind of got in, and we just like, everyone was talking, and it was like a whole, like, it just felt like you're part of something, like a community. Exactly.
Line, right?
Yeah.
Which I could relate to, definitely. I never did that for consoles because I usually only got consoles at like Christmas. I'd wait anyway. But yeah, like conventions too, like standing in line, or I've been to, midnight premieres for movies. Oh yeah. Definitely, I think there is this atmosphere of being in line with all these other people who are excited about the same thing as you. It's fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun. And I mean, there's downsides to getting the console. Like when I got the Switch, I played Zelda, and then I think it sat there for months. And I didn't touch it, because there was nothing else that I was interested in. So there's definitely, I guess, if you can consider that a downside, it's like, well, I put all this money in.
And you didn't wait for the, from like Nintendo, they always revise, have a better model like a year later. The
OLED or whatever. Yeah. Like, OLED, I mean, I do have the OLED now, but I mean, I don't play handheld anymore, but you know what I mean? Like regardless of the improvements or whatever that they might make mid-generation,
Even like PlayStation with their Pro models.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like there's incentive to wait, I think, for some people, but there's also, they could always upgrade later if they wanted.
Yeah.
Right. And that's
Depends,
been my thing.
I guess, their financial situation and time. But
sure. That's been my thing too, is like when the the PlayStation 4 came out, I got that. When the PlayStation 4 came out, or 4 Pro came out, I just got that. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm just gonna upgrade to the new thing or whatever.
Yeah. If
Sell
it's
the
reasonable.
old one. Sure.
The
I
PS5
didn't get
Pro
the
is
PS5
just-
Pro because that's not for me. It's
Yeah.
not for me.
it wasn't the upgrade I was looking for.
No.
Yeah.
I don't need it to run at 60 frames per second in performance.
I want a console that would play my disc natively.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's also a big thing. But like, I mean, yeah, I've liked the different renditions of like the Switch. Let's say when that came out, I still have my original Switch. Like I don't have an OLED, and
I saw
I'm
my light
deeply
with my OLED.
deeply angry that the Switch 2 is not going to have an OLED at launch.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, because in a year, if you're going to have the OLED version,
which like makes me so angry because like I was waiting. I was like, all right, like the next edition is going to have OLED for sure.
It's only you guys to blame, right? Who keep upgrading your systems and letting them.
Well, we have to.
I don't ever.
With the Switch 2, you kind of feel the need because it's so underpowered at this point, and it's trying to play all these different games that like you want to. And plus, like, I mean, flash forward to April when we have the launch like direct. They're going to drop a bunch of things that you're like, okay, I want to play this. Like
That looks exciting.
Yeah,
That's
like
We'll see how patient
Nintendo's
I'm able
been.
to have my patience.
Yeah, I'll be curious. We'll have to track this. Everybody everybody in the Discord, we're going to start a days that Emily holds out not getting a Switch 2. We'll see.
It's going to be a bet.
Oh my god!
Maybe we'll put money on it. Maybe I'm not saying that we're doing any kind of gambling or encouraging it, but we'll at least take over unders or something. We'll figure something out. We'll make a game out of it. It'll be fun.
Exactly.
We'll see.
Yeah. But for me, the lack of OLED doesn't really bother me because I don't play handheld really. So
I mostly play handheld.
I love
Switch, so it
The
matters.
handheld on the Switch.
Yeah.
Especially like the Switch looks weird on a 4K TV. Like
the regular
Switch when you put it up on a
it's using
4K
a cell
TV,
phone processor from 2017 or
it looks especially bad. So like for me, I'm always just like, I'm just gonna play it in handheld so at least like the screen can handle.
Yeah.
It looks good enough for the screen because it's smaller.
I mean, I will say, and I'm not a Switch hater. I love the Switch. I have a ton of Switch games. What they were able to do with that
incredible
is remarkable. Right?
Yeah, but it's also like
It's revolutionary, I would say.
It's like an 8-year-old system at this point. Like, it's just,
and
it's time.
like I was alluding to, the hardware they put in there 8 years ago was not new hardware. At the time. Like, so.
And the stuff we'll get now.
That's how they're able to get that price point where people would buy it. That's why it's so successful.
This new one's going to be pricey, by the way. Get ready.
I think it's going to be $400, but we'll see.
I'm going to say $450, and then if it's $400, I'll feel good that it's cheaper than I thought.
Yeah, because I don't think it's not going to have the biggest specs that people think it's going to have. No,
it's still a generation behind, but
it's still going to be a generation behind. But like
good enough, I think.
They did a lot.
PS4 is great still.
Yeah. And they're partnering with NVIDIA, who's got some, AI magic that they'll work.
Did you see you saw the leak about the AI upscaling DLSS or whatever?
DLSS for it. So that's going to be, that's where they're going to, I think, take full advantage of moving, when you're especially in docked mode. From what I've rumors is that there's going to be a beefier cooling system in the what do you call the dock, so that way it can it can push out a little bit more amps to give it a little bit of an extra push for it to upscale to let's say 4K if they wanted to, or even if it's 1440p. I don't really care at that point.
Still a lot of P's.
It's a lot of little pixels. And so
I don't have a 4K monitor, so I don't really care.
Yeah, no, my PC is not. Yeah. But that boy back there is 4K, so it would be nice to see it.
That thing is a freaking movie theater screen. It's so big. I can't. It's too big. It's so big. So big.
It's silly. It's silly, but I love it.
So
I love it. Yeah, I know.
But we should get
back on topic. I agree.
Shift back on topic here.
We should maybe
tangents.
talk about how maybe collecting has influenced us as content creators.
Yes.
Because like we've been influenced by others, we have also influenced ourselves, being in that space. I don't know who'd like to go first.
I vote for Abdallah.
Oh my God. All right.
Yeah, let's go from newest to oldest.
Newest to
In
oldest.
terms of
I am but a
Newest to
bearded
oldest.
baby. Why would you do this to me? Anyways.
we're putting it on the spot.
So yeah, I started
If you felt a need to buy games to show off from our podcast,
100%.
or on your own videos.
I feel pressure. These two make me feel pressured every
What
week.
do you mean? I haven't showed a game in I don't know how many weeks.
No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, but like that's true.
on.
We haven't shown too many games, but like today I felt the need though. No, but like we do like to talk about pickups and things like that. So I do feel like, like let's say for instance, when Branden and I go game shopping together. And I bought,
you guys egg each other on.
Yeah, and I bought Alundra 2, Alundra 1, the first Alundra game.
Yeah.
There was that pressure there. But it was good pressure. It was good. It's like
Was that content creation type of pressure or just friend pressure?
I think it was mostly friend pressure, right?
mostly friend pressure. So like from a
You didn't
content,
show it on a video other than afterwards you kind of talked about
Yeah.
it. But you didn't
Yeah.
buy it with the expectation, I'm going to have this to show off on a video, right?
yeah. So like there's things that I like, that I would collect nowadays. So like, let's say, for future ideas that I would have, like, hey, I bought that PS1 hardware that someone made that was based off FPGA. That I bought that.
Yeah.
I want it because I want it, but it's also like I bought it also framed with the idea of like I'm gonna talk about it because like it's something that I'm interested
make a video
in.
about it.
Like it's something that I want to use to make a video.
You can
It's
make a
something
video about it. It'll be useful and
Exactly.
very handy for like getting footage of PS1 games.
100%.
Like, there's a lot of reasons.
Yeah, there's so many things out there that I think about from that context now. So like when I purchase, like it's almost like sometimes it's like a little bit more meaningful purchases because like I look at it as like, not just something I'm going to ingest and enjoy as like a hobby, but it's something I'm going to ingest and also think about like how do I express this thing or how do I use this thing to also talk to people about and bring it up in my videos or just like how am I going to also
Provide value about it.
Exactly. Like it's like I feel like it's given me more like for someone who's just started on this like this journey of like content creation outside of just the podcast but just my own channel itself.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many ideas that I'm thinking of like as I'm daily thinking about like okay I'd like to do a video like this but like I also need to think about like do I have access to these things or these games that I would like to talk about? Do I need to figure out how to like own this game so then I can get some more footage or get some footage of the said game? So like it starts to be more meaningful collecting where I'm like, these are the things I love to talk about. And so I'm going to go out there and possibly like purchase that game as not just something for my collection, but as something I can just go in and just grab footage and use.
Yeah.
So it's given that kind of like perspective of like collecting for more purposeful manners rather than just collecting for just like, I want to maybe sell this one day or like, I don't know. Either way, I think as a group, the three
I
of us.
want it on the shelf.
Yeah,
That's why I bought it.
yeah. Like, we're not much of we're not like collectors in the sense of like, I want to see value from this.
Yeah, we're not
item.
portfolio
Yeah, I don't think we are
collectors.
really value
No.
collectors. We acknowledge it because we have to think about,
Yeah.
when we buy the game, how expensive is it going to be?
Yeah. Like my thought process is like, I will buy a game
That's
because
usually when I only look at value.
exactly. My thought process is like, should I buy this game now or later? Do I see this game being like a much more
Something that
expensive
could go
game?
up.
Exactly. Like, is it a more niche game that gets like, doesn't get as many, games out there
Copies
and
made,
copies
that's true.
made and stuff like that. So like, that's how I think of it as like value is more of like, am I going to have to spend more later? And so,
Yeah, I fall in that trap as well, the FOMO.
yeah.
Get it now while it's cheap, especially like when they used to clearance games out all the time. I would want to
Yeah.
buy it then before it disappears.
I'll have an example of that later on when we do our pickups.
Yeah.
I have a game that I picked up that not necessarily like it's definitely like a bit of like I might as well get it at this discounted price before it's like gone. But yeah, I think ultimately, so we can move on to just not me talking about this. Yeah, I feel like content creation has changed my perception as a whole. It's like it's created this weird, interesting dynamic for me. in terms of what I like to ingest and what I like to talk about, because like it's also like I think I've heard Emily and Branden and others talk about this a lot, is that like you also pick and choose the games that you play because time is of the essence. As you're thinking about it from a content creation perspective, you have to choose like what games you want to talk about, and then also, do you have time to talk about every game? No. Like, so you're really are like determining, you know, what you're collecting based off of like what you're gonna, you know, from a collect.
Would you say starting your YouTube channel, you've said no to some games more often than yes, or no?
That's probably not.
By trying to curate like how you want to have your content, you know, be positioned and what things you want to talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know. That also takes time away from just scrolling, like, you know, online to see what's available, because I used to do that a lot, where I would just kind of hunt for deals, and I don't have that much time to do that anymore. So that's also partly why I don't have as many games to show for pickups anymore.
That is so real. I was actually thinking about that personally. Like, I was sitting down contemplating that myself, alone down here, thinking about how like I don't have as much time to check out like YouTube channels that talk about like hidden gems or anything like that. I don't really like. Between trying to play the games I want to play and then also make the content I want to make is just very little time. And
I can't snipe the eBay, you know, auctions.
Exactly. Like, there's so many things that I'm like, I want to get. There was one the other day. Someone mentioned it on. The in the Discord. Someone brought up like the Morgana game. That I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll grab that. The Fata Morgana, and I was like, maybe I should get that. And then like by the time I had the time to go in and look at it, it was gone.
And look at the vault.
Immediately gone.
Like, it was immediately gone.
That never stays.
No, those things go away quickly. But it's like the same concept.
Makes you question, how many extra copies do they still have?
They probably
like
have a lot.
5, but they can put it on the banner to advertise.
I tell you, it is the Disney
like
Vault. They have
even
a
like
bunch.
VGP, they just have 5 available, and then they're just snatched up.
I will always bring up Grandia. And how Emily swiped that. She's the swiper to my swiping.
It right out from under you.
Wow.
Swiper, no swiping. I tried it and it did not work.
I did the same thing with that Train Odyssey Nexus.
Oh yes, that's true. So Emily is just here to swipe things out of it. She's an expert sniper. Let's just say. But
she doesn't have the time to do it as much as she did in the earlier days, but she still dabbles.
She does.
I dabble still.
She does it on occasion to see if she still got it. And she does.
You got to exercise it. If you
exactly.
don't
it's a muscle.
It, you lose it.
You don't want to get rusty with that. But anyways,
Absolutely.
That's how I feel about like collecting with my new found experience with this stuff. But Branden, I think I'd like to hear from you a little bit.
I very much agree. Like, I think what you said that resonated the most with me is like I'm paraphrasing, but like now that I'm doing YouTube, it's like there is more than just one reason to get a game now. Mm-hmm. Or like when I buy a game that I want, it fulfills more than just one need for me, right? I want to get the game because I would like to play it. Sure, obviously, baseline. But like, oh, I can talk about this in a video on my channel, or we can talk about it as part of a topic on the podcast, or you know what I mean? Like, there's just more reasons to enjoy the thing that I'm getting. So I think that has been a big part of my YouTube like collecting thing.
Sure.
You know, in the earlier days of my personal channel, I did a lot more collection focused videos. I don't do those as often anymore. And I will still, like, from time to time, do them because I do enjoy them. I guess the reason I shifted away from it was, for whatever reason, I started getting opportunities to do things that I didn't think that I would be able to do. And that has ended up just taking a lot more of my time and content focus, right? So like more modern, more current stuff, right? Reviews or whatever, stuff with NIS America or whatnot. So like, just kind of out of necessity of wanting to do that stuff, because I'm like, holy crap, I'm very lucky to have this chance to do this stuff. Some of the collection stuff has been backseated a bit, but I still enjoy it. I still am a collector. I still have collections on my shelves that I have not talked about. Like, at some point I'll have to do a PlayStation 4 collection video, and this thing is ridiculous.
You've got a ton. You have a ton.
So many games. Yeah.
But I think this also speaks to the audience you're trying to target on YouTube, because there is, while there's some overlap of people who enjoy collecting games and playing games, once you start making videos on this, you'll notice that there is quite a separation between the two. And so if you're trying to grow a channel that's maybe more review focused, it makes sense to maybe focus on that sort of content to get those eyeballs on you, rather than people who are there just for, the collection stuff.
Yeah, there is a line for sure. I personally have always straddled that line in terms of what I enjoyed. So I would watch both collecting, game hunting videos, and also, channels like David Vincent and, channels like that are kind of more talking about the games, either modern games or like nostalgia stuff.
Yeah, or news, or just, topics about games.
Yeah, Super Derek and whatnot, like all those types of channels as well. So I still think that I still want to do collecting focused content. Yeah. It's just by necessity. It's a smaller part of my YouTube than it used to be. So.
Yeah, I feel like as a creator, it makes sense to do videos you enjoy. And so if you enjoy talking about collecting, I think that definitely should feature on anyone's channel. Sometimes you have to find a spin for it to fit with the rest of your content, or if you want to, appeal to different audiences. But it's still, that's the part of the whole content creation, journey. Yeah. Trying to figure out how to position your videos for people to enjoy it.
And also, this isn't for any of us, obviously, but, for me, this isn't a full-time job or whatever. I'm not relying on income from YouTube to pay my bills. So I have a little more flexibility than somebody who it is their full-time job. And if they see that the content focus is moving in one direction, they need to go with that focus, or they're going to be not able to pay their bills.
Sink or swim.
Yeah. So that's not the case for me. So I have the ability to, appeal to a smaller subsection of my existing audience than somebody else might. So.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
And I could speak for myself because my channel is mostly focused on collecting, and I dabble into talking about games I enjoy and some other, adjacent topics, but I do try to center it more on collecting because that is, again, kind of a niche I'm interested in. I watch a lot of content on that niche, but I also try to make videos that are different in the sphere as a way to kind of broaden that, people who share their collections on social media are not here just to brag. There's other, worthwhile and value that type of content can provide. And also we're just people who like sharing things we enjoy. So that's what I try to do for my content. I'm very sporadic with it, obviously, this last year or so, but I still enjoy making videos on those type of topics and being creative with it, because, video making is all about creativity that I don't get to flex that as much for my work. So
Right. Yeah. Having an outlet is very good for that sort of thing. Everybody needs an outlet. And I'm glad you mentioned the notion of people thinking that somebody's showing off their collection to brag or whatever. That's, I don't know. I guess some people probably do that.
Sure, there's personalities like that. And narcissists, but
but
with anything.
Yeah, but it seems like some people in the audience are so jaded that they think anybody talking about something they enjoy must have some ulterior motive, some negative aspect to it, when could just be somebody nerding out over a thing they think is cool, and they have no ill intentions at all.
You get plenty of people who don't watch your videos and just leave nasty comments.
I love
all
that.
The time.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I respond to those with, watch the video, bro. Just watch the video. Right? I don't even ask if you watched it. I'm like, just watch the video, man.
Yeah. I do see a lot,
they like to come up with excuses. Of course I watched it. I'm like, no, you didn't.
I don't think you did.
I see that happens on both of your videos often.
I think it's starting to happen on yours too.
Slowly. I get balls to the wall comments sometimes on mine that have literally nothing to do with the video. So I don't know. Maybe people just who knows
Maybe
what
you've
I'm
got
attracting.
a subset of the stoner audience too. There might be some stoners in there that.
Well, I think
Abdallah, he does have that appeal to stoners. It's like
yeah.
you're kind of laid back,
Bruh.
your attitude, how you talk, and
I'm very
being all sarcastic and funny.
yeah.
It just appeals to the stoner.
I guess I pulled that in, but it's also like I feel like I've also kind of hit this weird situation where like some of these like very early videos of mine, because like I haven't done that many. Like I've done, I mean, I feel like it's a lot for me because like it's just new, but like for how many I've done, to have like a handful that have gotten like 5, 6, 11,000 views, it's hitting all these audiences that like I wouldn't that are experiencing me grow and learn as how do I do this,
right.
So they come into these like very
you know, I necessarily have the benefit of learning and making mistakes to an audience of 20 like I did. I think my friend, look at my early videos, it was like, ooh, I hit 30 views. That's amazing.
I think this speaks to all content creators. Like, no matter how long you've been doing it, there's always room for improvement and growth.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Like, I didn't get a good microphone until, was it a year and a half in? And people kept complaining about it. So, like, you're always going to have people who judge you on, you know, people who have done this for maybe the past 15 years.
Yeah, exactly. So
unfortunately, you're judged on that same plane.
So I definitely get like comments from people going like, you should do it this way, or like you should add these things to your like, you know.
Yep.
And
like, then there are always some comments for people who've never done it themselves. They love to give advice.
Yeah. I had one, I forgot what one comment was, but I think I answered it with like, all right, let me know when you upload your own video and I'll take a look at it. Because he wanted to talk about something specific. Like I was like,
let me see your example. I would love to learn from you. Master.
Exactly. I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is it. This is like, I made this. It's my thing. I'm still learning. I'm not going to say I'm perfect or anything like that. But like at the same time, I'm like, I don't go around commenting weird stuff on people's videos. Like,
well, you'll notice successful YouTubers don't usually go on to, you know, people's other channels and leave mean comments.
Yeah, like
if anything, they're always usually very encouraging and uplifting.
Exactly.
At least that's what I've noticed.
Yeah, I've gotten some good comments from some content creators. So
but other people who maybe are in that position, maybe that explains why they're in that position.
Yep. Yeah, I think there's like an outwardly like kind of think what like Branden was saying, like people have like just a bias, but like a weird, like, I want to say hatred, but like they've already made up their mind. Yeah, like they've made up your mind as like you're a YouTuber or a content creator. And, you know, I've seen like, you know, Branden, I've seen you get ones that are like, yeah, well, you just want to make videos for NIS America because they like give you things. And I'm just like, that's not like, you partner with them because
I was doing it already.
You were talking about their stuff well before they knew who you were.
I've watched your videos before you got into like in
your
it with NIS America.
Was on E8.
Yeah.
Vinyl.
Yeah. Like
so I kind of
you've always been talking about it. It's just because you've always talked about it. Right. They've reached out to you to do this because like it's just that I don't think people realize that.
It's a chicken and an egg.
Catch-22, if you will.
Yeah,
but it's a learning process.
That's fine. Yeah, I mean, like they talk about you'll get things like you're just access journalism or whatever. So you're just kissing their butts to get in with them. I'm like, I don't know. I have a like it's hard to even really talk about this sort of thing to people that aren't involved in it because there's no frame of reference. But it's like I am not a super negative person anyway. Like if I don't like something, if I play a game and I don't like it, my review is not going to be, this game is trash and you should not play it because it sucks. Like that's not me. I'm going to talk about the issues that I have with it. And I'm going to talk about things that I think it did well. You know, I'm going to provide a, multifaceted view of the game from my perspective. I'm just not going to trash a game. Like that's not me, that has never been me. Like mostly because I don't think that video games are made in bad faith. Like no game designer is like, I'm going to make a game that is so bad and everyone's going to have a terrible time with it. And that's my goal is to make sure they have.
Look at some of the eShop games.
I mean, some of those games I think are made.
There's some cash,
that's
low-hanging fruit
precisely
cash grabs.
That's precisely
but those
why
aren't usually the games that you'll be reviewing.
that's precisely why I don't look at those.
Those are those aren't real games.
Like, you know, if Foodie puts out a game that people are like, oh, this is trash or this is mid.
I'll talk about that.
That's I was going to say that's an allusion to your what you got.
If you haven't figured it out yet,
you'll get there.
You'll see it soon.
But like you know, I have issues with that game for sure, and I talked about them in the review. But I also didn't just do what so many people did, like not just on YouTube but in print media, whatever. Like, oh, this game sucks. Don't waste your time. It's like, no, I'm not going to say that. Like, that's just not me. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I think people, even if they're not given any data or anything to back it up, they'll just come to their own conclusions.
100%.
They're kind of set in their ways.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, but that's just how things are.
Such is the way.
It's okay. They provide engagement via dislikes and mean comments. So
exactly.
The thing is, they don't realize that actually does help.
100%.
And hinder us.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I still need to figure out how to answer some of this.
The thing is, like, silence is like the biggest diss you could give someone, right?
Yep.
Just ignoring them.
Mm-hmm.
But
some of them I have to ignore. Like some of them are so like uncomfortably just a little bit out there that I'm just like I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. Just like I've got no comments.
Not every comment deserves a reply.
Yeah.
Or you don't need to reply to every comment.
No, yeah.
Like it's usually
thoughtful,
good, especially when you're starting to build a channel. You want to have an inviting community, so it's good to interact. But there's just some comments you don't need to interact with, and that's okay.
Exactly.
As like I've had pretty bad anxiety for most of my adult life. And I say that just to preface, like when I started out on YouTube, I was very, very good about responding to every comment. Mm-hmm. And I didn't often have nasty ones in the beginning that I needed to respond to. Because like I was saying, I was getting a few dozen views. And so I would get 3 or 4 comments per video. So it wasn't overwhelming. But as the channel grew, obviously the comments grew. And so now going into my comments, like to read them, not even thinking about responding is like super anxiety inducing for me. So
same for me.
I can imagine.
That's why I have our podcast comments on YouTube Studio, not my own channel.
Yeah. Because it's like it's easier. Yeah, and like honestly, like, and I want to.
The pressure's off.
I want to respond to the kind comments and things that people that are asking questions or whatever, and I still make myself get in there and do it sometimes. But it's just a real anxiety trap for me, and so I procrastinate on it and.
They start building and building,
and they build,
you just have to move on
up
at some point.
I've given up on
I've given up too.
Yeah,
whenever I release a video, I try to respond to a few in the first day, and then I just read the next comments and make sure I need to censor anything.
If there's anybody being abusive or whatever,
just gross. But
yeah.
But
anyway, this isn't a YouTuber group therapy session or whatever.
But that was a tangent, but. You got to see a little bit of the sauce, I guess.
But collecting on social media, like we talked about YouTube a lot, but there's a lot of, gaming or game collecting content on Instagram, Twitter.
Yeah.
Other,
TikTok's pretty big on that now.
Platforms.
Yeah.
And I know there's, a lot of like pros and cons to it all because when you see someone be excited about a new game they just got in or their collection now looks like this and they show different, pictures of their display, it can kind of create, an environment that is very, I don't know how to say this nicely, but like FOMO inducing, but also a jealous kind of environment and you or envious environment. And it's, something that you can avoid. I would say in the space for any hobby. Like I could do, for example, in the the book collecting sphere, right? We have something called BookTube and Bookstagram.
Yeah.
And people were just displaying all of their really pretty hardback covers with sprayed edges and gold foil embossed kind of just beautiful books. And there's a point where people were just complaining that people were showing off their shelves and how aesthetic everything was. And they weren't actually reading the books that they were collecting. And I find that in gaming, it's kind of interesting that you do have two separate hobbies of video game collectors and game players. And there's kind of an animosity between the two sometimes, where you don't always have that nice, peaceful intersection.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have noticed this as well.
Yeah.
But I think if you want to collect games, again, just for the purpose of collecting and maybe memory holding of, childhood nostalgia, or games that you would like to maybe someday play, or maybe have no intention of playing, but just owning, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
And
I think
there's so many people out there who are against that.
I know. I want to talk too about what you mentioned with like Instagram and Dalla. You said like TikTok and some of these like social media platforms that aren't YouTube that have a lot of this collecting content. And I think, and this is just a theory, I don't spend as much time looking at game collecting content on other platforms outside of YouTube. Maybe between the three of us, we can put together a coherent opinion on it. But I wonder if there's a lot of that animosity in social media is driven by like a lack of context, because I can watch a YouTube collector who is showing off part of their collection, and I don't necessarily read a sort of bragginess from that. It's more like an enthusiast showing off the stuff that they enjoy.
Yeah.
With something like
you can hear their voice and all the details that they say.
Yeah.
All the time they spent to film it. 'Cause
Exactly.
it's usually, a hefty video if you're filming your entire collection on
Right.
YouTube.
Yeah. And then on something like Instagram, you might get a really short video or just some pictures of the collection.
Seconds.
There's no context to any of that. So without that context around it, I wonder if it makes it feel more braggy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Or detached. Like, you only have this to show off.
Yeah. Like from a TikTok perspective, because like, I watch pretty decent amount of like gaming stuff on TikTok sometimes when I'm just like scrolling and doom scrolling through it. Guilty. But the one thing I do realize, because like it's an interesting space, because it's like, YouTube is very mature. Like the people who are on YouTube who watch like gaming content are the people who outwardly look for that, and they've been watching that content for the longest time. Yes.
You have a lot of younger YouTubers who watch, Let's Plays and things like that.
Yeah.
Just like Minecraft videos.
The Let's Play world is a little bit...
Specifically for collecting and older kind of JRPG games, it is older.
Yeah. Like the Let's Play scene is a little bit younger, I think in general.
Even like Switch stuff.
Yeah.
Like Switch news and stuff, that does kind of lean younger
Switch, yes.
in some ways.
But like when you look at TikTok, it's interesting because like the audience is so different. And right now on TikTok, I see like a trend of nostalgia. Like there's a lot of older people on TikTok, like let's say millennials or, Gen X or
Older
whatever
Gen
it is.
Z,
like, older Gen
at
Zs
at the bottom end. Yeah.
who are like you see a lot of the channels there are catering to that nostalgia, like almost bait. It's not like it's a bad thing, but like it's like
even like the Y2K stuff that can come back, right? That's that same era, really. For millennials and
there's a lot of people
Gen
that
Z.
talk about VHS, to talk about like collecting VHS, that talk about like all this like 80s adjacent material or early 90s, let's say, material, like, or like the nostalgia of like living in the 90s as a kid. So like they use a lot of that imagery, and they use that to kind of like generate that content, and then they spin it like the people who do games spin it from a game perspective of like, how they're going
Do you think
to.
this is just your algorithm though on TikTok? Because
Honestly,
I feel like
100%.
TikTok is very good at curating everyone.
Yeah, the algorithm on TikTok.
But presumably, like if you're
There's not people though.
If you're like the audience for this show and you use TikTok, your algorithm is probably pretty similar to Dalla's in a lot of ways, I would assume. Right?
Exactly. Like for the most part,
I'm not on TikTok. So.
Like
depending on some of the other, things you might, like, or I don't know. I don't really know how TikTok works, but
it's all about how long you watch a video.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then also what you like and or subscribe to, whatever it is. But like, it's like if you watch a video for like the whole way through, it's going to know like, hey, you're interested in something like this. It understands that. And so like, there's things that it'll show you. Like, it's so weird. Like their algorithm is so, this is off topic, it's tangent again. Their algorithm is so crazy that like, it'll show you things that you didn't know you wanted to watch. Like it'll
knows you better
find
than you do. Yeah.
Exactly. It'll find things and some of the things, I mean, my algorithm can get really weird sometimes. So like it'll show me some like out there comedy sketches that I'm like, where would I even think of like anything like this?
They must be pulling this from like old marketing research because, you know, like they used to put like alcohol or beer and diapers next to each other.
Yeah.
Because the dads would come in for beer and they needed to also pick up, you know, or sorry, they would come in for diapers and they had
they might as well
pick it up.
Yeah,
exactly. So they know how to associate things.
Yeah.
Is that a dirty 30 a Bush Light? I don't mind if I do. You know?
Oh, a dirty 30. That is that's rough. I'm dying. Oh.
It's the most economical way to buy.
That's true. Oh my God, a dirty 30 of some natty ice.
Yeah,
but yeah, there's like it's interesting seeing the differences of how gaming content is.
It is interesting. And then there's also this rise of like anti-consumerism, you know, anti-capitalism that you see also present in the collecting sphere.
Yes.
So I feel like some of it does stem from people who are minimalists or maybe not financially well off, just, you know, having their own beliefs, trying to position on other people, which I feel a little lukewarm about myself, but.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like, okay, like your relationship with gaming is your own relationship with gaming. It's like religion in a sense. So like you do whatever makes you happy at the end of the day and gets you through.
Yeah, as long as you're not hurting somebody else, just do you.
Yeah, exactly. But like, it's not something that you should wish upon anyone else who doesn't also feel the same way. And it shouldn't be something you should throw down.
You don't need to push your beliefs on others.
Exactly. I
That's
feel like
interesting. The religion video games convergence there is like the evangelism that happens in certain circles of video gaming.
100%.
There's a heavy amount of that. Like,
exactly. Because it's like their passion for it is sometimes so deep that it's like it defies logic. So you have this whole idea, but like that's like a whole thing of like, if you're really passionate about something, even if someone comes to you with a counter argument that sounds right, like you're not gonna like, this is your belief. Like you're not gonna fight it.
You're not gonna have your world destroyed or upended.
Exactly. Like it's gonna be something that you're going to fight on tooth and nail, even if you're wrong, or even like wrong is subjective and sometimes in these kind of situations. Sure. So like it's how you perceive it.
Even from the video game perspective, to steer into the skid of this, from the video game perspective, right? Like, you know, people get up in arms evangelical about their games because, you know, I think it stems from they genuinely want other people to have the same positive experience that they had. And like they are very misguided sometimes in how they go about, you know, trying to encourage someone, convert people using all the wrong tactics. I've
seen this. If I want to do another K-pop tangent, people who are into K-pop trying to convert their friends to K-pop. Oh yeah. They're very, very forceful sometimes. And that creates an aversion.
It reminds me of when you're younger, like let's say like in college or in high school, and you found your like their next favorite movie or your next favorite show, and you're like
or band or something,
you bring your friends over and you're like, hey, watch this, and you're like mostly watching their reaction to this whatever you're showing it to them.
They become a fan.
You're holding them prisoner, and insisting that they consume. Yeah,
and if they don't like it, you're like trying to negotiate why it's good, almost like sometimes
explain to them why it's good, why they're incorrect. That's like my niece would do that with K-pop. Like when we'd be over, she would just put it on.
Typical
and
K-pop.
Like nobody else in the room is a K-pop fan. She's just like, here, this is on now.
I'm subjecting you to. Eventually, osmosis is going to work, and you'll be converted.
That was the only way that I realized that I knew a Stray Kids song. Was because she did that. I was like, well, because I had heard that song, and then it was a different song, and I was like, I recognize that singer.
Yeah.
And then we did a little research, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I know this. Okay, cool.
I think one of the members did another OST recently for an anime.
They did another Tower of God, actually.
They did, but I think one of, like, there was a Lisa song with one of the members. I forget what show it was.
So they have another one outside
like
of Tower
really
of God.
recent.
Oh, okay.
Lisa's super
because I know they did the
popular,
second cur of the second season of Tower of God as well.
I think it was Solo Leveling, actually, now that I think of it.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Solo Leveling. Anyway.
Stray Kids are fun. But anyway.
Today's a tangent day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't really. Yeah,
It's always a tangent day.
Yeah,
on
that's
here.
true.
Yeah.
That's true.
When do we not do tangents?
tangents.
We can't help it.
No.
Can't help it.
Look,
So many things to
you know,
talk about.
But I'm also not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. I feel like, is there any closing thoughts on this before we kind of begin to wrap up? I don't want to like hurry us if you all have anything else in particular, but
I feel like we covered a lot of, the influences of social media on game collecting. We talked a little bit about prices. Like, I don't think we, have much of a position to say on how that's been influenced, other than it obviously has been. Whether it's positive or negative is up for, subjective opinion.
yeah.
Like, even if games do rise, at least on the retro market, I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. You don't necessarily have to buy those games because you didn't buy them to begin with.
Yeah.
And so just not giving it into that FOMO just because there's an expensive game out there you don't have.
Yeah.
I don't
You
think
have to
that's
take
end
the
of
good and
world.
the bad, right? Like you said, you learn, like you watch a Metal Jesus video and he talks about a hidden gem that he really likes on the PlayStation 2. And you're like, oh, that looks really cool. I'd never heard of that game. And then you go to buy it and the price has gone up because, like you, a bunch of people saw this video and were like, oh, I'd never heard of that. That looks cool. Like, that inflated price, I think, is just the cost of not having been aware.
Knowledge.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just, now and you would never have known.
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to buy it to play it this day and age, right? We did
True.
talk about emulation, even though it is clunky in some aspects.
Yeah.
But
Depends on the
there's
system.
usually some method for you to experience a
Yeah.
game that maybe you missed out on.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's ways to do it.
There's always ways to do it. Just do, like you said, whatever makes you happy at the end of the day.
And hey, there's so many remasters or remakes coming out.
Yeah.
We're in another renaissance here, I think.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is
I'm
like
gonna
the
enjoy
year
it
of
while
it.
it lasts.
Yes. I'm
Yep, yep.
pumped. So, yeah.
But yeah, I think overall social media has been positive, at least for all of us, because we have been actively participating in it. When it comes to talking about games and sharing our collections and whatnot. So I guess on that note, anything else you guys want to talk about collecting and its influence on from social media?
I think to the point you just made about, we've been enjoying it, particularly because we're a part of it.
Yeah.
What I would just say to people listening is, you don't necessarily even have to be a content creator to participate in the community, right? Like, you can just engage with people on Twitter or you can join Discords that are people that are like-minded and talking about this stuff. Like, that's where the real fun of it is, right? Is getting to engage with other people about it. So, like, you don't necessarily have to start a YouTube channel. You don't necessarily have to do TikTok or whatever to
You don't have to post
participate.
anything. You just reply or talk about, conversations and forum posts if you want to do it anonymously.
I mean,
Yeah.
There's so many ways to engage and talk about these topics without necessarily being, in the forefront.
and that's what I did for the longest time. Like, I wasn't creating content or anything like that.
Yeah,
but I
we
was
dragged
existing.
him kicking and screaming into the...
100%. Like, I joined this, and then next thing you know, they were just like, well, they guilted me weekly. Like, when is that? When is that?
Hey, you wanted to do it. We were just helping you.
That's true. I mean, I wouldn't have done it if I didn't want to do it. So, like,
True.
yes, like, I think they give, I appreciate the push because everybody needs a little push here and there because
The nudge. Yeah.
life gets a little busy and you just kind of fall into what's easy and routine. So yes, I come from that space. So, like, honestly, anyone out there who just like wants to be, join these Discords, enjoy like just being around people who are like-minded. Get on Twitter, Bluesky, all those different ways that you can talk to people. It's just
The internet's a great thing.
it's a
Even
fun
though there's
space.
some awful things on the internet, there's some positive things.
Yes,
as well.
despite the trash that exists within the dumpster fires that exist within different spaces, there's still a lot of good to be taken, and there's a lot of good people out there that you can find and create close like communities of like ways that you can share ideas or whatever you like.
Yeah, or just appreciate it.
Yeah,
like I was a lurker for the longest time.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly. I enjoy it. I lurk on a lot of things.
Yeah, I'm lurking right now. You don't even know.
You know how long I lurked on Branden?
I don't.
Way longer. I'm just kidding.
So let's before we say goodbye, let's talk about some stuff that we picked up recently. Do you want to go first? Mine's underwhelming, but in I think a funny way. So I don't know if you want me to go first or last.
Well, since you talked it up, I think you need to share it.
Start it. Okay. So the only game I have to show this week is, and I don't know why I bought this. I feel like I have a vague memory of ordering it. Yeah. But even now, I can't muster up the memory of like why I did it.
Okay.
It is Kayak VR.
What?
Mirage. It is just a game in which you put on the headset and you just kayak through real world locations.
All right.
It is not.
I know why you got it. It's an excuse to justify your purchase of that VR.
Maybe.
That is
maybe
most likely accurate.
No, actually, I do remember now having a conversation with my wife, Jen. I was like, this could be fun. Like if you just want to sit, because she can't do like a lot of moving around games where you are like moving your character around. Like if she can be stationary, I think she would have more fun with a game like that. I was like, did you want to try this? And she was like,
kayaking's fun.
She was like,
I don't kayak.
I think no. Like once or twice I've been kayaking, but
I love kayaking. Yeah, we should go, Branden, this summer.
We should go kayaking. Yeah,
there's a place right next to me that does it. So
all right, let's do it.
Off topic.
It's happening. But I think her response to my asking that was like, I don't care. I was like, okay, that's basically an endorsement. So that's what I got was Kayak VR Mirage for the PlayStation 5.
Anyways, I can do mine.
Show us.
I've alluded to this all episode, but I picked up Reynaudus. And so that's sweet for you. This was on Woot for like, I don't know, it was like $24 or something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty cheap.
It was very cheap. So I figured at that point, I was like, this is like, and that kind of goes into what we were talking about before is like, sure, it doesn't seem like a perfect game. But it looks like a fun game. I like the art design. I like the way it looks. It's got like a fun, like cyber punky, like Tokyo vibe to it. So I'm excited to play this at some point whenever I have time. That's a whole different scenario, but I'm excited to try it out though. And I know Branden's review, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Was really good, and that's what sold me on picking it up.
Yeah, nice. It's got a really good story. I enjoyed the combat quite a bit as well. The issues that I have with it, I think I outlined pretty well in my review.
I agree.
It is
I played the demo, or I watched the demo on the Switch. It looked ugly, but I think the PS5 probably handles the game much better.
PS5 is better for sure than the Switch was really sluggish, really slow and sluggish.
Yeah.
So yeah, PS5 is the right choice as far as console for that one.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, it's it's the furthest from a perfect game I think I've played. Well, that's not true. As far as games that I'm enthusiastic about, it's the furthest from perfect, but it's still an enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
It's a game.
It's the game. It's the game of all games.
Could I say though?
Yeah.
I really don't like how Amazon has shifted to Woot for all their sales and clearances.
Yeah, what's been going on with that?
I have all this built up credit on Amazon.
Me too.
Oh, and you can't use it on Woot?
I can't use it on Woot.
Yeah.
And also Woot, it's not always guaranteed you'll get the North American version. Sometimes they slip in other regions.
I don't buy Switch games.
I feel like I had that happen to me once.
Yeah.
And they have a little notes, like a footnote saying this may not be from North America.
Yeah.
But they don't show like the right image.
It's annoying. I made the mistake
consolidating their overstock.
I made the mistake with Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, I think. It came in and it was like...
It's so weird though. That's the only place you could get from Amazon Nintendo, like recent Nintendo games.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And like
they don't sell it first party.
No.
Or any of the Nintendo like first party games because Amazon and Nintendo have some sort of conflict still.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know if it had to do with like breaking street date or something.
Probably. Nintendo does
Something
not
led to
forgive
that.
anything. Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyways, yeah. Emily, how about you?
Unfortunately, no games to show. I am saving diligently for Midwest Gaming Classic, like Branden. But I have been playing Atelier Yumia. There's the demo out right now, which we are hoping to actually play in our after show together.
Yes.
So
Yeah, we'll be recording a
I
stream for
should
that.
stick around for that if you're a member at the Pursuer level. I think it should be fun. Having played a substantial bit of Yumia, it's been a fun game. So look forward to that.
Agreed.
I downloaded it, so I'm excited to see it in play. So I will be reacting to this live as well. So I haven't seen any of it, so I'm excited.
So you'll be like,
Yeah, and you're a baby to Atelier, so it
Exactly.
should be interesting from that perspective.
This is the start of my year of Atelier.
I like how we've infantilized you so many different ways in this episode.
I'm just
You're just a sweet little baby boy.
So if you somehow see me at Midwest Gaming Classic, don't call me a baby boy.
Yeah, don't call him a baby.
I'm not
He's a grown man.
I'm a grown ass man.
Anyway, thank you everybody for
much
tuning in to this episode of our show. We really appreciate you. And I can't wait to see you again.
Take care.
I don't know what I'm doing. Goodbye.
You made it weird.
I made it weird.